Okay, good evening, everybody. Open up, call to order the CAC meeting for March 4th. It's 7, I guess, 01. You can see the clock is back then. First thing is the minutes. Everybody look at them and any changes needed or anything, accept them. Make a motion that we accept them. You make it?
Yep, make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay. I second it. Let's take a vote on it. Everybody, ladies?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
All set on that. Okay. Now we get started with the meat of the program, which is the Cheequit Wetlands application, which is for 2 years we've been working with this one. Oh, I can't get it straight, but anyway. Okay. Pam, I see you there, so I just want to tell you, we have the memo, we got it tonight that you sent, and it's very good. We're going to discuss a lot of it, but we'll see what happens.
Is that this?
Yeah. It's not, yeah. That's it. Brings up a lot of good points, but more thorough than I am. Okay, so we're going to discuss 7 Cheequit. Like I said, we started this 2 years ago. It keeps going on and papers going back and forth. And I had some notes on it. I'll just read what I said about it. 810, drawing 810, which is the architectural plan, states bottom of pile caps, elevation 1 foot 6 inch. See engineer's detail. Unfortunately, I keep asking for the engineer's details, drawings, and we never get them. Matt says, well, why do you need that? I said, because who knows what's in there? I don't know what the helical, how deep that's going under there, what the material is. Is it going to corrode in 10 years? And then the building's footings go down. We need all the information that's available so that we can do it. If it's mentioned on the drawings. And I know, you know, that they work on them while we're doing other things and come in and finish them. But without that, it's really not, we have an open end, let's just put it that way. And I appreciate the consultants have to work on it, once go through a whole bunch of permits and everything to get it started. But what's the rush? And here it is 2 years. If they would have gave it to us then, I'm sure they would have had the plan. So that was the first one that I brought up. The structure is, you know, the architect felt that the structure detail required a licensed structural engineer. So we should have had that. You know, I know Matt says, well, the architect can handle that. But the architect was smart enough, knowing that this is built in almost in the wetlands, you know, right adjacent to that with poor soil conditions, that he wanted to have a structural detail, and it's mentioned on the drawing, so we should see those. And we might not, I mean, I'm not a structural engineer, but I've been through enough engineering to know that I can notice something and it might help not only the client, but the engineer and the architect. So I think we have to have that. Let's see. And that's what it says on A24 and A25, which was dated 11/20/28. C. DeLandro Andrews Engineering. Note 2 says if engineering details differ from architectural plans, review with architect prior to starting of construction. Now, I think the drawings should be coordinated before they start construction and not, and when they're submitted to the building department and when they're submitted to us, they should be coordinated, not that once construction starts, if they find something. Should be a complete set of drawings. Okay. So the signed and sealed drawings that we get might not be coordinated. And that's, as far as I know, That's no sense to have two sets of drawings submitted if they're not coordinated. With one set of plans that we're reviewing, if the structure doesn't match the architectural, I mean, it can happen, but they should be coordinated. And the difference from, I guess, is my problem is that I was an electrical engineer for 47 years, and we always did drawings, and we had preliminary drawings, design drawings, and check drawings. Today, all the professionals have a CAD system, which is computerized assisted design and development. Nobody checks them. You can look at any of the title blocks. There's no check by. It's all self-done. And I think a lot of things fall through the cracks. And we get it in the field when the contractor comes in, but that's what I feel about that. Okay. Third thing I had was the test holes were made in May 23 on drawing C1 dated 1/17/25. That's the latest revision date on that drawing. So they still hold from 5/23. High tide could raise groundwater levels, which can always happen. So I just want to make it aware of that, that it's 2 years we have sea level rise. We know we're experiencing it. It's probably very minor in 2 years, but it's going to be there, and it's going to be there in the future. And let's see what else I had on that one. We should maybe say, add a note to check high tide when excavating for the pile caps to avoid any chance of dewatering, because you're not allowed to dewater. So that was basically what I had on 7 cheaper for this meeting. I mean, in order to get down to the pile caps, you got to excavate 5 foot of deep of soil for, I think it's a 60 by 30 strip. And then if you put on the slopes to protect that excavation, you're getting quite wide. And they have a swimming pool right next to this building. I think it's not a well-coordinated project. That's my personal feeling. But like I say, they have their errors and omission insurance. And all you have to do is if the house falls down or falls into the water, is go after them, you know. It's not our job to see whether they have that. I think the state requires it. Maybe not. I think you can be self-insured. It's sort of like people today buying a house. They don't get a title search because they got so much money. There's no sense. They'll just correct it later. Okay. Anybody else want to add to those? Anything? Or say I'm not going too far or whatever.
Well, my only comment would be that, you know, if they have a groundwater or a test bore from 2023, the letter of non-jurisdiction that you get from the DEC is good forever.
Right.
So what's the life expectancy on a test hole bore? Is it only good for 2 years? Is it good for 4 years? Is it good for 5 years? I don't think that,
Well,
you know, especially something that
You're right.
we as a regulatory agency, the town,
Right.
not just us, you just said initially that this has been going on for over 2 years.
That's correct.
So at what point does the customer, does the property owner have to say, hey, you know, I submitted everything I needed to do. Now, every 2 years is going to make me resubmit everything again, and I have to have everything redrawn again. I mean,
Well,
the test hole, I mean, that's, like you say, if global warming, I think we can see the tidal rise and all of that is, I'm going to say minimal, but it's not crazy. It's not like it's going up a foot every year.
no.
So I think, you know, reasonably speaking, if the thing was done in 2000, if it was done in 1999, I could understand that you want to get a new board.
You would have
But
to.
2023,
I think
it's a year ago, a year and a half ago. So we're not like treading water at this point on this property. This property really has never flooded. I mean, it's been minimal. When you get a huge storm event, you know, everything down there floods.
Exactly, on the end.
So,
And it's, yeah.
and they've raised the building, and that's the reason for the pilings, and You know, I think to make them do another test bore is just, that's redundant, I think, at this point. I think, you know, maybe if we're still here playing with this thing in 2027, maybe that's legitimate.
That's fine, yes.
But it's like a year and a half,
Yeah,
maybe
no.
2 years, so I think that's.
I just want to point out when it goes into construction, first of all,
Well, you dig a hole, like you say, you're not allowed to dewater.
right,
Woo, big red flag.
but then what do you do with your pilings that are set at a certain elevation? Redo your structural drawings
Well,
then?
the only thing would, I think, and I'm not an engineer, but I think the only thing that would happen if you had what, you would have to make them go deeper.
In order to put
And maybe make
piling
them bigger.
footing in, you'd have to.
And again, that comes back to the engineer or the architect saying, oh, hey, I designed it for this, but now we don't have this, so we have to do that.
Right. Well, that's why I put on the comment there that, you know, it's then because the actual test hole wasn't done at high tide. I look back at that. Well, the tide tables, first of all, are predicted. They can change all the time. And there's a predicted tides. They could be high.
You always have to get the average,
Yeah,
because you can't,
you can't. It's predicted. And,
but that would be my only comment. So, you know, test hole, it's only good for what it is.
right, yeah, I agree. All right, so have any, should we approve? I think with all the questions we have, and Pam brought up that, you know, that we should maybe wait until we get some answers from Matt.
Well, I have,
He's on, he's on.
I have a 5-page thing from Pam, and I didn't see this till I walked in, so I'm not gonna.
No, you're right.
So, I mean, that, you know,
We're not
push this again, I mean, that's the unfortunate. I think.
Yeah, we just got.
Based on that, I mean,
But on the comments that I have, I think we should, Matt,
Matt is on, yes. Matthew
Matt.
Sherm, that's him.
are you there, Matt?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Good evening.
Hey, good evening. How are you all doing?
Okay.
Good.
I guess you heard my comments on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make some, you raise some very good points. As a licensed architect, McDonald is allowed to stamp his own drawings. And at the same time, you bring up a good point that if he sees a situation that's either outside of his expertise or his area of practice, he should bring in somebody else, whether it's a sanitary designer like me, or whether it's a structural engineer like Paul Delandro. And my understanding of the way that foundation system was designed was as a collaborative effort between Ian and Paul, with the bottom of the pile caps being at 1 foot 6 inches, so just above groundwater. Groundwater does fluctuate with tide. It is, and to your point of looking to see what the tide charts, when high tide was at the time that those test holes were done, groundwater high tide is going to be behind high tide in Greenport Harbor, which is probably the closest location you've got. And it depends on a number of different things, but I've put in groundwater monitoring ports on a lot of different properties on the island to try and get a feel for how much of a difference groundwater is actually going to see, and how much of a lag you've got from high tide elevation to high groundwater elevation. And in most areas, especially on the north side of the island, you're looking at about a 3 to 4 hour lag between high tide at the harbor and high tide at groundwater. And you're also looking at, again, it's very site dependent, but you're looking at a 2 foot, maybe 3 foot at the most that we've seen in really, really pure sands, 3 foot type of fluctuation from high to low. So those are all good points. And those are things that, as was also brought up, are going to have to be taken into account when construction starts and they start to put in this foundation. And I'm not a pile engineer. I'm not, that's not my expertise, but I do know enough about it to say what they do is they drive the helical piles. That doesn't require any type of excavation or anything to that effect. They basically just screw them into the ground, and they screw them in until they get to a certain amount of resistance. And that predetermined amount of resistance says what the load capacity is for each one of those piles. then they stop putting the pile in. It could be at 1 foot 6 inch, like what's on these plans. If they end up getting the resistance a little bit shallower than that, then the top of that specific helical pile may be at 1 foot 8 inches. It could be at 2 feet above, zero.
Right.
So there is going to be some fluctuation of that. And what they have to do is, since they don't want to go any deeper with their pile cap, is they might have to drive some piles in to more resistance than the minimum design requires, so that the top of that helical pile isn't deeper than
Right.
1 foot 6 inches. So no matter what, they're not going to go deeper than that at the top of the pile and the bottom of the pile cap, but it could come up a little bit. So it's going to be very, very site specific when they start the construction. And I know that it has been a point of frustration for the CAC and for others trying to get their hands on some of the structural background for that. But, the other part of that is, on a wetlands permit application, I don't know of any that we have put in, the meat and potatoes structural design, the foundation design with all of the load calculations and the type of steel we're putting in and everything else for a typical foundation. That's all information that's used for the building permit. It's not typically information that's used for the wetlands permit. So there is a little bit of a gap between the type of information that's typically supplied at these different stages of these applications.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna write this up and you can respond to it.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that.
Your
Yeah.
response.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, so take a vote that we wait on this until we get response back. Oh, Lori, I see your hand up. Actually, Jessica saw your hand up. Go ahead. Lori, are you muted? Hello, Lori? Lori? Well, if she comes back, we'll get her.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Phone wasn't cooperating.
Okay,
I just wanted to let you know, I went to the building department because they had, previously issued a building permit that was rescinded on this project, as you know, from the court.
right.
And they did not have any structural drawings. What you see is what was submitted to the building department, and that's it. There was no additional structural information.
Well, they should be submitted, I mean, because that's part of it. Yeah, it should be stamped documents that go along, and once the architect says,
I mean, I went there, I looked through the file, I foiled it, I spoke to Brett, I spoke to Reed. There were no structural drawings other than what you see in front of you submitted to the building department for their permit, the one that was rescinded.
and that's rescinded, so that, I think Pam brought up, and I read in there that it should start all over again, which is an expense to the client, but I think, with all this missing information, going to the building department, the denial letter should start over again, and all that. That's my feeling on this, and I think we'll leave it open until we get some response from Matt, a written response, or from Ian. I mean, they're the two people stamped drawings and the structural, so we should leave it open until we get response. Stella, you have your hand up?
Yeah,
Oh,
hi.
Hi,
Thanks.
good
I
evening.
mean, mine is more of a procedural question. So this is going to be discussed at a work session of the planning board next week. And I'm trying to figure out, with the CAC leaving it open, is it going to get to a point where they say, well, your 45 days is up and you had your opportunity to make a comment and you didn't? Because, I mean, the last time that you all met last month, you were discussing saying, if it doesn't come out of the adjacent regulated area, then, you're not for it. So I agree, we should definitely have I would love to see, or our engineer would love to see, the structural plans because we've got concerns with respect to proximity of the dry wells. But I don't know that you have the time to ask for more information before next week's planning board if you're going to take a position at all.
Yeah, well, my position is, I think, or the committee's position, I don't know, I think we don't have all the information. I think we should wait until we get it and before we make a judgment on this.
Public hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Public hearing is closed.
They closed up the last meeting.
So
At this
the
point, it's
town
moot.
didn't take any advice
Planning board.
of the planning board. Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah,
planning
because
board
it's
is
still
given the
on.
wetland permit,
Planning board should still be able
They're
to
still-
read your.
right?
Yeah.
If we,
I think we should print up our comments and.
I think we can submit our comments and they
Tell them do
take it as it will, as it is.
Okay, so just our action, we'll put it as our action on this site instead of positive or negative. Okay, so we'll add that as our action and we'll do that.
So you only have till tomorrow to do that.
Well, Jessica's fast.
Bless you, Jessica.
Well,
Well, the public meetings are records.
public meeting is a record, yeah. You got
Comments have been made,
our Comments are made,
Right.
so.
It can be accessed.
I'm not a lawyer. I don't be a
Pretend to be one.
I don't even know if the town has a lawyer now.
Whoa, easy, easy.
A temporary one, but
Better than nothing.
anyway.
Anyway,
So I'm gonna say, you agree that we submit our comments?
Yes.
And that's it. Okay, so we got that. That one's done. I'll leave this for Jessica, so that's that. All right, good. That's the wetlands. That is the difficult one, I think. Just put all this together so I don't lose it again. Okay, the next one is Gardeners Bay Country Club site plan review. That will be, we talked about that before. I have all the plans here. This has been discussed at WAC where, and Hay Beach Neighborhood Association has written a letter on everything that was discussed on the plans that we received, which included runoff collection and all of this other stuff. And at the meeting at the WAC where the gentleman, I think his name was Ben something, I don't recall, he said that none of that's going to be done, considered now, only the cistern. That's what they said. So I think these plans should be resubmitted just with the cistern. And all that we require is that one little, on the plan, one section that shows the blow up of where the pump house and cistern is, because it's a big structure. It's 20 feet deep excavation and something like 60 by 40 or something like that. So, again, it's not a small project. And as far as the CAC is concerned, we only do it for site visibility and noise. So I think we should see that again. That plan should be resubmitted just for the cistern, not to have all this other miscellaneous stuff on the plan.
Did they change the cistern size or anything?
I don't think so.
No, it stayed the same that they had.
I had seen one comment from the,
The wetland, the water.
the one from Southampton. The-
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't think of her name. But she had said that they wanted to be more specific with what they were planting and, how much they were planting. And I'm not sure if we ever got that.
it's on the plan.
Is it?
They do say they're putting up a berm and then they're gonna have grasses on it.
Right, and some cedar trees, but they didn't know what kind of cedar trees, and they should be more specific with the
Be more
cedar.
detail, but
Right,
I
and that was
think
the only thing I saw that was,
the thing is, should be just for that, if they're submitting just for the cistern, which the gentleman from Gardeners Bay Country Club said it was, then give us a drawing that just shows that. I don't want to see auxiliary wells and this pumping and stuff. And it's really, the cistern is to hold enough so they get buffering, so they don't draw that much, and they can do a good irrigation job, which is what everybody would like. I mean, you know, save water, do it efficiently. And I think they're on the right track, but it's just so hard to do a plan, approve it. And we'd have to say, we accept the plan for only the cistern. And then you don't have a plan in the file that just shows that, you know, you got everything else. Well, is this, I mean, to me, it should be resubmitted.
Either that or just accept it once they, you know, with the plan just showing the cistern, you know, just instead of going through the whole rigmarole again, just have them eliminate the other stuff and.
That's right.
which they did on paper, they made all their comments saying, we withdrew.
Right.
But again, the paperwork accepted didn't show that.
Okay. So, yeah, they could do that, so. My thing, let's see what I wrote here, this was done yesterday, I think. Plans submitted show extensive work for water capturing, irrigation, etc. GBCC, which is Gardeners Bay, has stated that the project now only considers a cistern and pump house. Site plan should be revised to show anticipated works only. And the second was a cistern for the pump house will require a 20-foot excavation by 50 by 20 foot deep by 50 foot by 38 feet. That's a large excavation. You know, you go down there. Now, they don't have trouble with the water table.
No groundwater
No.
at 20 feet, no?
No, that's in the high point of the island there, so they don't have any problem with that. It's just, it should take account of that. I mean, the neighbors there are gonna be these big burn of, unless they do like you do, you take it away and bring it back. I don't know if they.
Well, no, I'm sure they're gonna have to remove a lot of it.
Yeah, and bring it back, so.
Plenty of room to move it.
It's a lot. And that wear and tear is on the golf course and stuff like
So
that.
they're gonna use the same well they have now to fill this thing?
To fill it right now, yeah, and they're gonna put the pump house in there, the pump for the irrigation only. None of this fertigation, which they said that doesn't apply. That's just evidently it's a pH neutralizer or something, that fertigation. It sounds like it would be for fertilizer, but it's not. So I think we should just say those two items I said, that the plan should be done that way, and
But if we do postpone it more, then they're gonna be doing it in the summertime, I think.
yeah,
You
do
know,
that anyway.
You want it in.
yeah, they want it to be
Functioning,
done
sure.
sooner than later, right?
Sure,
You don't wanna be doing that work when everybody's
Right.
here.
No, they should be doing that during the
Yeah,
winter. Right,
exactly.
exactly, but that's past. I don't think they get that done.
Maybe.
And then
That's up to them.
I'd queried with the building department whether they actually have any sort of an irrigation permit for what they have. And from what I understand is they don't. So the town code says they're exempt for the tees, the fairways and all that from any system that was in there since before 2003. But I'm sure they've expanded it. I don't know for a fact, I don't want to get sued. But, and my next question was, does Goat Hill have a irrigation permit? And then they don't. So I don't think they had any irrigation prior to 2003. So everything that they've put in and they continue to put in should be permitted as well.
They hadn't. I remember they used to put the hoses out. You
Well,
know?
no, they have underground irrigation.
Yeah.
They have it now.
Yeah.
And my question is, since they're only exempt prior to 2003, if they don't, why not?
Apply for an irrigation
No, that
permit.
keeps expanding.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that they both should have irrigation. So we know, starting today on March 4th, I think,
Yes.
this is what we have. So moving forward, we know if it increases or changes or gets bigger or whatever, then we have some sort of an idea of a base figure on it. And I think that, we need at least a drawing from them. We got it from Gardeners Bay, showing what they have
Oh,
now.
yes, they have.
Whether it was from prior
We don't
to,
know when.
we don't know. And same thing with Goat Hill. I mean, they have irrigation. When did it go in?
Yeah, I don't.
Are they using Heights water or are they using their own? Nobody knows.
They didn't have a pre-existing irrigation system.
That's my point. So they're not exempt
According to the code today.
according to the code. So we should at least have a map of what they have and how big the pipe is and how many gallons a minute and where's the water coming from? I mean, so I think, good for the goose, good for the gander.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right, you should not pin one on the other.
So I mean, like, again, if we take today as the base, okay, starting today, we know what you have. And then going forward, if you want to change it or add to it or expand it or whatever, then we can at least say, well, you're adding 42% or 8% or whatever it is. Because we have no idea what's going on. We have some idea what's going on in Gardeners Bay, but maybe,
Well, we don't have a lot, I mean, I agree with you, but we're not gonna go look at every irrigation system.
no, I'm just saying, there's only 2 golf courses.
Yeah, which are exempt.
And
We
if you
tell-
want to get into that discussion, now you're also talking about agricultural uses
Right,
that are exempt.
yeah.
However, the definition of agricultural is not in the code. So is that 1 tree?
Or plants.
Is it 500 trees? Is it an acre? Is it a half acre? I mean, a lot of people have come to the zoning board, I know, to get exemptions for an 8-foot fence because they have a lot of very expensive plantings.
Sure. With the
That should be
Egyptian-
maybe considered an agricultural use, which would be exempt. So,
Well,
I mean, I think
that's
we need
a,
a little work on all of this.
oh yeah, the code, I mean, we've been working on the wetlands for now over a year and we still haven't got it.
But this is specifically irrigation.
But who's gonna work on that? Who do we?
I don't know that do we have to worry about that other than just to say that we think that should be
Where would we
done?
say that, our concern? Like,
In our-
I agree with your concern.
Well, again, irrigation, we're talking an irrigation system with Gardeners Bay Country.
Right. Just put a note on that,
We recommend,
recommend that.
We recommend that we should be brought up to speed on the other golf course as well.
absolutely. That after this conversation that was brought
I
up,
understand it's a public, town-owned entity, but if we're holding their feet to the fire,
Well, it should.
we should at least know what the heck we got.
Right, exactly, especially since West Neck is drawing more and more.
And Ken Lewis may have the information, and Brian Mansky may have the information, and, just collate some paperwork.
Yeah.
But I-
So I'll
It's a bad
say, in addition, Goat Hill,
Just a summary of what do they got,
summary.
and where does it come from, and where does it go?
Are you guys doing Goat Hill site plan review? Gardeners Bay
No, we're
Country
not,
Club?
we're not. Country-
No, we're just doing Gardeners Bay.
Country
Right.
Club.
But we're just gonna put a note on it, in addition, Goat Hill. a
But if-
summary of
if-
the
if
application.
They're trying to use an exemption.
Well, that's like another whole
Exactly.
whole issue, Howard.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
You're talking about Gardeners Bay,
Right,
right? Okay,
so should the
they
town,
have Gardeners Bay.
okay, so should the town be made aware that since it's a town property to Goat Hill, that they should bring up to the
I'll bring
exemption?
it to the town's attention.
Okay, so,
That'd be
The
helpful.
town owns Goat Hill.
right,
as you
exactly,
know.
exactly, yeah.
But again, we're asking them
So
for,
you'll bring it up to them, we don't have to add it on our note, because we're just doing Gardeners Bay.
I'll bring it up.
Okay, thank you, there we go, that
makes our life easy.
It makes our life easy for now. Okay, so that's Gardeners Bay. Site plan review. Now, the South Ferry Incorporated is the second one.
yeah, there are hands
Oh,
up,
okay.
yes.
And there's one additional that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Want to do,
Look at my commission.
yes.
I guess, Stephen, you're the yellowest hand, so I'll call on you first.
Yellowest.
Stephen?
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Following up on some of the prior comments. First, Stephen Jacobs, Hay Beach, and I'm also a member of the Neighborhood Association.
Right.
The 2 letters we circulated noted our concern as to whether the club was actually in violation of the town irrigation code, in particular, whether they have expanded beyond the grandfathered areas, and I think it's 8210D, something like that. The club was unable to give us documentation as to the history of the irrigation. They told us to go to the building department to look at current plans. And the bottom line is we are in the midst of investigating this. Expect to be done by the end of next week, and want to be comfortable with the facts before we make a final judgment or claim. But we have very serious concerns about this. And when we've finished our work, we will promptly let you, the town board, and the other relevant entities know. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I read Bill's letter on that report, and it was very thorough, and I agreed with everything he said. So I appreciate the homeowners association's work on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Pam, your hand up on this one too?
Yes, thank you, Howard.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring to the council's attention the provision in town code about cisterns and filling cisterns. It's in 82-7B2. And it says that cisterns are not supposed to be filled in with well water. And this project is proposing to fill this 116,300 gallon tank with well water. It does not show that the golf course has an exemption for that. They have an exemption for what they're irrigating, but they certainly don't seem to be available to have an exemption of this provision of the code. I would just ask this council to look into that further, because clearly it says cisterns should be filled with trucked in water.
Yes, I know that section of the code, but I don't know if that's prior or, that whole thing that the homeowners, Hay Beach is very thorough on their investigation, and you are correct. The code says it should not be with well water now, but the DEC has allowed them to use so much water. I think, what is it, 116,000 gallons or something? So
6 million a
6
year,
million.
right? Something like that.
Yeah, some for irrigation there.
They
And it
also
says-
have an application with the DEC that went in 2022 for 2 more additional wells to be drilled on the property. It's still in limbo, and there's no information as to where the status of that application is. So yeah, they have a permit to withdraw 6 million gallons, but it does appear that they're going to be looking to withdraw more. And the code says that cisterns shouldn't be filled with well water. So I really would like to know the stand of town employees, how you feel about that. It's written that way in the code. And like I said, there's no exemption for golf courses on that provision. So I'm just asking you to look into it. It's a huge project. I think more information needs to be given.
Yeah, well, I think that's what the whole thing was about. That's why I started with saying, well, that they just submit that buffer type of cistern, which it would be pumping from their existing pump. It's not an additional pumpage going in there. So, but you're right, we should look at the whole thing, but I don't think it's our purpose to do that. We bring it to attention of the town.
Isn't that the reason they made this application, is to get permission to do it? Not that they're exempt and they're automatically allowed to do it.
Permission to put in that.
Put in the cistern.
Absolutely.
Because
The
look at-
cistern,
What
right.
they're trying to do is they're trying to slow down the pumping of the groundwater. So
Right.
if they can pump it as they're allowed to and put it into a holding facility, I think that's what the whole permit application is for.
Basically,
They're not asking for an exemption, they're asking for permission.
to put a
So like
cistern,
that's-
to make the system more efficient, they're saying.
Well, not just more efficient, but more environmentally friendly.
Right.
Right.
So you're not pumping huge amounts of water all
And
just,
that suction.
but you're taking out a slow amount. I mean, a lot of times when people build big giant houses in the wetlands, one of the provisions is they
Right.
can only have a small pump.
Yeah.
And they have to put water into a collection system. And then, so it's not getting pumped at a tremendous amount of rates. It's more of an even flow. And I think, my understanding of the permit application is that's what they're applying for, not an exemption.
Right, and that's.
Because if they were exempt, they wouldn't have to apply.
Right.
So I think they understand they're not. And
No,
yeah, cisterns have to be, for a pool or whatever, for a standard operating thing, it has to be trucked in water from off island, which
Exactly.
is questionable, but,
How long that'll last, we don't know.
but again, it's the same aquifer. So they're doing the same exact thing they're doing, only they're
Yeah.
pumping it from over there
But.
to put it in here. So
Right.
the whole thing doesn't make any
But
sense.
the irrigation for those cisterns put in for the different houses, they keep a record of the fillings that they have. And I think the town board, the building department gets that. They're supposed to keep records on.
Well, they're supposed to get a receipt. As far as I know, there's no meter on the pump.
No, there isn't. There's
So
just a
we don't
receipt of
know
what
if they
is
pumped
on it.
out 100,000, but they only put 10,000 in, there's a water coming from.
I think they do. I think they do. But I'm not sure of that. And, I'm not gonna.
Anyway, my only point is that
You're right.
I think they're asking for permission.
Exactly.
There is no exemption. That's why we're here. So they're presenting a system that they think will be more equitable to the neighbors and less of a draw, and
To the environment.
it's environmentally better, I guess, if you want to make that argument, it's fine. But like I say, they don't get an exemption. I don't think they're asking for an exemption.
It would make sense to me if they had a recharge area where they have, like an acre of water is like 50,000 gallons and an inch of
Like a
rain.
sump?
But yeah, have a sump there and put a pump that isn't, 100 gallons a minute, you know what I'm saying? And fill it with that from a recharge area. So at least the water that you're recharging.
Well, the original plan shows from there picking up water that was running off into the bay,
Right.
putting pumps in to do that, and they cut that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even if they just, created an area that would be like a sump where it just goes into the ground, but they pump from that point rather than from somewhere else,
Well, it's not our purview.
Right.
Well, that's their application. We're here to talk about what they're doing. So
That's-
we got one more hand up here.
Okay. Dave?
Video.
Hello, good evening. Dave
Good evening,
Rubin, I'm in Bay Beach. I note that, I'm aware that Gardner's Bay has withdrawn the rainwater capture and diversion component. I'm still concerned that their fertigation, which they have reduced down to, I don't want to try to describe it, but pH and wetting
Right.
agents. I'm not aware that that has been withdrawn. So I'm concerned what they're spraying into the atmosphere from that system, if it still is in the system. And I think that should be looked at. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Dave. Well, I think we should just go through the cistern as a buffer system and not with the fertigation, which they call in there. And they're not thinking of doing that right
I
now.
think they're regulated by the DEC for what they're allowed to spray on the ground.
Sure, definitely, but
So
they have,
that's not part of this.
they're not thinking of fertilizer like that. They're thinking of
This is water collection, water distribution or whatever.
So I'm just,
Can I still jump in?
sure.
Those tanks are still part of the plans as far as I know. The fertigation, the pH control and wetting agents. So if they're in the plans and you approve them, they're in the plans.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah, I understand that, Dave, and that was what I started, that it should just be for the cistern and the filling of the cistern and not for changing anything with the chemicals or fertigation that they call it, whatever system. And that's why I originally said they should just submit for the cistern. And that's it, with that pump there. I mean, it's a huge project by itself. But that's what I have written here. So I think we should just, how can we handle this? We're not approving or disapproving, just recommendations from the committee?
Was this whole fertigation thing a new issue?
Yes, this was all done originally on the cistern, so.
Oh, it was all done on it. Okay. So it's still part of the cistern plan then?
Who is on now? Who's on? Anybody?
No,
Well, Howard, what were you asked for, the committee's purview on site plan review?
we have to look at the block, there's vegetation surrounding the building or something like that doesn't interfere with the neighborhood. And they show that on the plan. They're building a berm and they're putting grasses on that. So that part they have. And the noise, the building is going to be insulated. So as far as the CAC is concerned, they've done what they want. But the plan doesn't show just that. And there's other things that we would be involved with. I mean, conservation is water, land, and all of this. So you're right. For the site plan review, those two items are.
Okay, but if you have other issues, you have to bring them to the table.
That's what,
Sure.
yeah, that's all that was, so. Okay.
Trying to ask a question.
Ooh.
Ms. John Edwards on.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Yes, who's this?
Oh, John, yes.
John?
John Evans, you took? Am I
Yeah.
on?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, I had my hand up for the 7 Cheekwood, and was never recognized, which seems
Oh,
a problem, you know, going back to the planning board also, but I just wanted to, you know, make a point that this is an accessory structure that's limited to 2 bedrooms, and their own, the planning board's own consultant, Grosser, said to the planning board that you could take it out of the wetlands. You could take the structure out of the wetlands by just removing the porch and a little bit of the first floor, just a little bit. You don't need the eating kitchen, you don't need the formal dining room. If you just removed a very little bit, you could get it out of the wetlands. Now, there are issues besides that, because they're gonna put in a lot of fill that's gonna impact the structures next door, which I'm one of, you know, as the floods come in. And this road floods consistently with heavy rains. So, you know, there are a couple of issues, but I just wanted to point out that this is Ian McDonald, who has a private client, you know, Mrs. Shepherd, who I don't think this is really going to be an accessory structure. I think she's going to live there. And she has said to the planning board that she's always wanted a porch, and that's what, you know, this is all about. So you can have this structure, you know, out of the wetlands, which you should be concerned about, because this is a, you know, and Grosser's own, you know, opinion, you should have it. If you don't, I'm sure Stella will give it to you, says that this is you know, a special area of the bay, that, you know, feeds, you know, a lot of, I was out there this morning, you know, I'm in the city now. I was out there this morning, a lot of ducks, a lot of wildlife, a lot of mallards out there, and right in front of the property. So, you know, it's, you know, this is not an accessory structure. She's building another structure. But if you wanted to have an accessory structure, you could easily have it. If you just gave up the porch, which has nothing to do with 2 bedrooms, and gave a little bit back on the first floor, you don't need a full eating kitchen, you don't need a full dining room. You know, this is, I mean, according to the, and the town code says, and Grosser says that this should not be granted as long as there is an alternative to having, you know, an accessory structure outside the wetlands. And she points out, you could, this is Grosser pointing it out, not me. I mean, this is Grosser, their own planning board's own consultant says you could easily do this by removing the porch and getting rid of a little bit of the first floor dining, whatever you want to call it, you part of the living area, the dining area, the fully eating dining room, or whatever. So it's I mean, this should really, it doesn't belong here. It's going to impact the neighbors, which is me, you know, obviously, and I think it really is going to impact the wetlands. So where do you go from here? I mean, it just is, and that's why Ian McDonald is no longer, you know, chairman of the planning board, because obviously, you know, he set these things up with Matt Sherman, and I've been before these, you know, the planning board, you know, now for 1.5 years, and I see what's going on, and nobody really has on the planning board has any knowledge except for Ian McDonald, who would tell them, you know, what, because he's an architect. I don't think they have any training. So, they would follow his lead. And I think that that's what's happening. So this could easily be outside the, outside the wetlands if minor adjustments were made. But she won't do that because she wants the porch, and that's what it's all about. And I don't think you should give it to her. So, because I think the wetlands are important, and you should be, concerned about that. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
For interrupting. I'm sorry for taking your time, but I do think it's important. So,
Yes, it's very important. It's part of what we want to do here. And we have asked for that several times, and their consultant, Matt Sherman, has come back and said the owner wants it. So we're not here to enforce the law. We have enforcement bodies that would have to take care of that. And I know Stella has gone up and they fighting this all the way, and we're trying to help because we think it's the wrong place for it.
Well, then just say it. Just make a recommendation then, because they're looking to you, to advise them, and just make the recommendation that no, we don't. I understand you're the advisory subcommittee, whatever you want to call it, but at least advise them that this is a bad plan and should not be condoned. I mean, where do you go from here? I mean, what's the point of having a wetlands code?
Well,
sorry, but
we have advised them, and they've come back and they're going to court on this.
Well, believe me, I was part of that.
Right.
And, it may go again, but they're looking for your recommendation. That's what the planning board. I was there at the last meeting. They're looking for your recommendation, not to punt it, but for your recommendation. And I think that you want to recommend one way or the other. And I think the clear recommendation.
We gave that recommendation that they should look at 129, that it says, give all the other alternatives. We gave that to them.
But there are alternatives.
Of course there are, of course.
We gave those alternatives the last time.
We told them to, we did.
But just say that to them.
Or you can reiterate it.
We don't know, and we don't,
Okay. You can make the list. I see you did it March 4th.
Yeah, we did it March 4th.
Alternative. You could do it again
You can do it again.
and make a recommendation on all the things from March 4th in this meeting.
All right, so
Or in
we'll
this
add
video.
that to our recommendations, all right?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Second,
thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm
No,
sorry.
no, I agree with you. I mean, this
Thank
is a
you.
very sensitive area, and we know that the yacht club is going to dredge there and get it deeper, and the water, and we know the sea rise is a problem, and it's not going to correct itself. It's going to be, it's a problem. It's a problem that they could avoid, at least the code saying stay out at 100 foot, and then their consultants come back and say, well, the town board has accepted other projects. Now, every one of those projects that Matt Sherman lists has a different twist on it. There's no precedent.
At a historic area, totally, exactly, not an 1,800 square foot structure. One of them was 220.
2 feet. No, I understand. You've seen it, and I know you're on top of it, but, so we'll just reiterate our past law.
All right.
We
I mean,
appreciate you.
He's paid to do what he's, got to do, but.
Yes,
And
exactly.
you should look at that with that, critical eye. Okay, well, thanks very much. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I know it's a long.
We take your advisement on the consideration, and we appreciate your help on something like this. It's not that we're avoiding it, but thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll reiterate together. So we'll set on that. Should we take a vote on that? To add that to it? Sorry. Okay, motion to accept.
Yeah.
Reiterate.
Yes.
Okay, we got, no, okay, so we got 5 for, 1 against.
No, it's, I think it's all.
No, four.
Oh, you're out?
Let's see, the abstains. Votes
No, I
no.
vote no, not abstain.
No, okay, correct. Thank you. Okay. So, back to where we were, which was the South Ferry Incorporated. Now, that site plan, as everybody knows, we looked at it on the wetlands application and accepted gave our comments on that, and that whole area is wetlands. There's no getting around it, it's I think it's a commercial project there. The ferry's been there. You know, Cliff knows the problems there. He knows, when you try to drive on a high tide, you hit the bottom of the car and stuff like that. It's way more than his building. His building is nothing compared to what the roadway has to be increased and raised so I think we just accept it as it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Albert, you had a meeting today on raising the causeway? I missed it.
The chief was just coming in and it's timed every 5 years, you have to update the hazard mitigation plan.
Okay.
And they were looking at that the last time. So they're gonna continue to look at that. If there's sections of the causeways that can be raised, not both causeways completely, but sections, low-lying areas that can be raised to allow a high water vehicle, a big truck, whatever, to access Ram Island in case of an emergency, if somebody has to be evacuated.
Of course, I mean, it's very important.
So that's part of they're working on, it's gonna be a new mitigation plan, hazard mitigation plan.
Yeah, because it's true on other places, Bridge Street. You won't be able to ride through there at a high tide. What do you do there, And there are other places on it.
The ferry terminals, I mean, they're all part of the
Yes.
hazard mitigation plan.
And it's all has to do with, I guess, the DOT, because those roads are the DOT. And I know Ken's involved with it, and he's doing a very good job, and he's got a lot to do, and it's a big problem. But anyway, we'll get that when we get it. Now, so we're done with those. The last thing, a couple of last things, we're gonna, our old business, which is the preservation project. Jessica has given you a page on what we did the last time. We should be looking through that, just go through when you can. I didn't go through February. There was no reason to, but I talked to Ken and he knows about the problems and he's addressing it. It might not be now, but we can repeat them and have it stand there. I mean, you can't just do these things immediately. Springtime, you can plant some bushes and stuff like that, but he's on top of it. He's very hard on it. So if you want to walk through those sites anytime and write down what you think, welcome to it. We try to do that, I guess.
Anyway.
I guess in April or so, by April, depending on the weather. It's not.
Go out sooner and won't be too much.
Exactly. Right. Better idea.
Already out. Don't worry. I know. I gotta go. Red eye.
The other thing we have is you got the 14 Margaret Drive for next.
Yeah, so we can walk through that.
Yeah, we can walk through it. To be honest, they have no problem, so. And that's it, again. Make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everybody.